A motorbike racer named Hua was seen ready to take part in the macabre motorbike competition with his proud number 23 in his back and bike. Hua was on the starting line with other riders and the fans chanted his name in the spectator seats. Soon after, the race started. Sometime later, a mafia group led by a man named Tong saw from a broadcast on television that Hua had won the macabre motorbike competition. With that achievement, Hua was nicknamed the God of Racing. Tong, who turned out to be a former professional racer, just like Hua, reflected on his fate. Several trophies and photos from the past were seen there. It was then revealed that in the past, Hua, Tong, and their two friends, Li and Feng, were teammates. They all aspired to become world champions in superbike class motorbike racing, and people recognized their skills in the circuit. And that was proven when a kid who knew Tong's prowess in riding the bike asked his father to take a photo of him while riding Tong's motorbike. Hua, Tong, Feng, and Li were taught by an old man named Mr. Wu about good and correct racing techniques, but in almost every meeting, Tong was always late, and because of his rather lazy character, Mr. Wu preferred to give a bonus to Hua rather than Tong, who was a lazy dog. One day, Tong had a problem in his career and preferred to disappear abroad for a dozen years. After that, Feng decided to leave the team and become a mechanic, while Li unfortunately died in an accident during a race, leaving their current team with only Hua, who survived alone. Feeling like it was time, Tong visited Hua, who was holding an interview session, but instead of congratulating him, Tong dropped the championship trophy in front of everyone. Because of this, Hua got angered and punched Tong right in the face. He then asked what Tong wanted, and so it was revealed that Tong's arrival there was none other than to challenge him in a race on the circuit. Hearing Tong's words, of course, Hua wasn't the least bit afraid of him, so without further ado, he accepted the challenge. Long story short, Tong and his team went to a dealership to buy a newly released Kawasaki ZX-10 RSE. That motorbike was equipped with a fast transmission without a clutch, aka a quick shifter. Unfortunately, they had to pre-order the bike, and the one in front of them was just a display, but when the salesman Xiao realized that the person who wanted to buy the bike was Tong, Xiao, who turned out to be a big fan of Tong, said that he would try to get the bike Tong wanted as soon as possible. Soon after, at a racing circuit, Tong's bike finally arrived, and seeing this, Hua and his team looked amazed because Tong actually wanted to compete with him. With the number 99, Tong, who had not tried the asphalt of the circuit for a long time, immediately tried the motorbike he had just bought. Surprisingly, he seemed to still be able to master the circuit, making his crew amazed. Tong spent day after day training, but his motorbike speed still couldn't match Hua's lap record. He was even warned by his crew named Kim to cancel the race because Hua was way better than him, but Tong still wanted to race with Hua. The next day, the race day finally arrived. It was just as expected. When the green light was on, Hua could lead the Tong quite far. To see this, Tong's crew was nervous, but in one moment, Tong somehow overtook Hua. It turned out nothing but a technique from Hua so that he could shadow Tong from behind, so he lost his focus, and sure enough, in the last lap, Hua was finally able to overtake Tong. In the evening, Hua was seen alone contemplating his fate. Since a fatal accident several years ago during a race, he suffered from a major injury in his abdomen. The wound never healed completely, even worse, it had gotten worse, causing Hua to be in a lot of pain. Even though he had undergone surgery, it hadn't gotten any better. The doctor even advised Hua to stop racing. One day, almost all of Tong's crew left him because they had to go back to taking care of Tong's business, except for Kim, who wanted to accompany Tong. Not long after that, Xiao unexpectedly came over and volunteered to join the team. It was on that occasion. Xiao explained that Hua was able to win against Tong because his motorbike had been modified. Tong, which only used a stock motorbike, was clearly inferior to Hua's motorbike, which had been fully modified, plus with Hua's knowledge and experience in racing. Hearing that, Xiao then took Tong to meet a reliable mechanic. Upon arrival, it turned out that the reliable mechanic that Xiao was referring to was Feng. This was when Feng found out that Tong was a mafia and had a lot of money, so he was willing to help Tong completely overhaul his motorbike for a very big reward. Reliable Feng started his work right away modifying the motorbike. He chose the best parts to make the bike as good as possible. Long story short, it only took a few days to finish the job of modifying Tong's motorbike to be faster than Hua's. On that day, unexpectedly, Tong immediately approached Hua and asked him to race. Hua was too confident with himself and decided to accept the challenge of a single lap race. Even though Hua felt discomfort in his abdomen right before the race started, when the green light came on, the race started anyway. It was clear that Hua, who had better control of the circuit, could maintain his position far ahead of Tong, who continued to follow him from behind, until at one point, Tong suddenly fell on the track, causing him to lose the race once again. Due to this defeat, Tong kept thinking about why he lost control of his own motorbike. Curious about the motorbike Hua was using, Feng told Xiao and Kim to secretly take Hua's motorbike. It turned out that after further investigation, the problem was not with the motorbike, because Hua's own motorbike actually used a lot of off-brand goods. That was why Feng realized that Hua had done everything to be a good racer. He then gave Tong a drive containing a video for him to see. The drive contained a documentary video of Hua telling the story of the struggle to build his team alone. Even though it felt impossible, Hua remained confident and persistent until finally, he managed to become a champion. Realizing that he couldn't race anymore because he was old, the next day, Tong received a suggestion from Feng that he should just train Xiao with several other amateur racers who were doing training. Tong agreed and Xiao was told to show his ability. Immediately, Xiao took the helmet and showed his skills by racing with the other racers. In the evening, Tong, who realized that he had made a mistake, approached Hua and apologized because he was stubborn and had left the team when Hua needed him. Hua, who understood what happened, forgave him. At this moment, Hua revealed that he wanted to retire, but he needed to find a successor first before he could do that. Tong immediately took Xiao to meet Mr. Wu so he could train Xiao. Mr. Wu, who was old and paralyzed in his legs, said that he could no longer train anyone, but because Tong and Xiao kept asking, Mr. Wu and his wife decided to give them a book written directly by Mr. Wu himself. After paying for the book, Xiao gave Tong an old photo of him, which showed that Xiao was the kid who took a picture on Tong's bike long ago when Tong and his friends were still teammates. With the information from the book, Tong immediately trained Xiao. It started by disassembling and reassembling the motorbike engine. Not only that, Tong occasionally asked Kim to wet the circuit so that Xiao could master the circuit in other conditions too. Physical training was done as well to maintain Xiao's physique to become a good racer. After a lot of training, in one evening, Xiao challenged Hua to a race. In this race, it was clear that Xiao had a little difficulty competing with Hua's ability, who of course had mastered the circuit. When Hua was already far ahead, surprisingly, Xiao, who was left behind, was able to catch up and overtook the first position. After the race was over, Hua's illness recurred and he lay limp on the track. That was when Hua, who felt that Xiao was suitable to be his successor, chose to retire and hand over his team to Xiao. Long story short, at one racing championship event, Xiao was seen at the starting line getting ready to race. When the race started, from a distance, Tong was seen proud of the results of his hard work in training Xiao. A few years later, Mr. Wu, Hua, and Tong had officially built an academy for young racers. The journalists flocked to them and asked them questions, and not after that, Xiao, who had succeeded in achieving his dream of becoming a champion, showed up.